No comment.
28-year-old Peter Khill walked out of Hamilton's John Sapinka courthouse a free man after a jury found him not guilty in the shooting death of John Stiers, an Indigenous man from the nearby Six Nations Reserve. Khill testified he was acting in self-defense, falling back on the military training he received as a reservist years earlier. It was dark, 3 in the morning, on February 4th, 2016. Khill and his girlfriend, now wife, Melinda Benko, woke up when they heard 2 loud bangs. Khill looked out the bedroom window of their rural Bimbrook home and saw that the radio lights in his truck were on. The court heard the couple were already on edge. The week before, while Khill was traveling for business, on 2 occasions, Benko heard someone trying to unlock their back door using the electronic keypad. Khill grabbed this shotgun from the bedroom closet, loaded 2 shells, and dressed like this in boxer shorts, a t-shirt, and bare feet, he quietly went outside where he saw a man leaning into the back of his truck. He says he yelled, "Hey, hands up," said Stiers turned towards him, later telling police and a 911 operator,
with his hands up, and not with his hands up to surrender, but his hands up pointing at me. It was pitch black, and it looked like he was literally about to shoot me, so I shot him.
He fired 2 shotgun blasts from less than 12 feet away. Stiers, a 29-year-old father of 2, was hit once in the chest, leaving behind a large hole in his shirt. The second shot hit him in the back of his right shoulder. Stiers collapsed onto his back in the muddy driveway.
CPR for probably 6 or 7 minutes, and he's got nothing, no pulse.
Stiers didn't have a gun. He did have this knife in his pocket. The Crown called it a cruel killing, one that could have been avoided if Khill had just called 911 from the safety of his house and waited for police.
911, please fire an ambulance.
It wasn't until after Khill fired the 2 shots
Hi, somebody's been shot.
that Melinda Benko called 911.
There was somebody who was trying to steal the truck, and he went out with a shotgun just because we were both scared from the noise we heard. I don't know if there was a weapon outdoor or what happened, but he just wouldn't shoot unless something was seriously wrong, so that's why I'm just terrified.
Khill was arrested,
4 steps of murder.
eventually charged with second-degree murder, pleading not guilty. Telling the arresting officer and then the jury when he took the stand, he thought he was going to be shot, that it was instinctive, and his former military training became central to his claim of self-defense.
It was something that he indicated literally within minutes after the incident. He said, "I'm a soldier, that's how I was trained."
His defense lawyer, Jeff Manishin, telling jurors it wasn't a matter of going outside to protect a truck, he acted to protect his life.
He felt terribly about what had happened. You saw the evidence as to how devastated, mortified. But he would say he believed he acted within what the law permitted.
The jury saw pictures of his 15-year-old pickup truck. The passenger side door lock had been punched in with a screwdriver, part of the steering column damaged, and a screwdriver on the seat, bloodstains on the door and across the passenger's seat and floor. The Crown arguing that when Khill yelled, "Hands up," he startled Stiers, and the minute he started to turn around, Khill pulled the trigger, saying it was likely Stiers was bent over or even on his knees when he was shot again. The Crown saying, quote, "Peter Khill wiped that man out in the driveway of his house. He murdered him." The jury accepted Khill's explanation that he shot Stiers in self-defense. When the verdict was read out, Khill's wife broke down in tears. On the other side of the courtroom, the mother of Stiers' 2 children began sobbing and stormed out shouting, while his mother, seen here leaving the court in her wheelchair with her head down, quietly cried. The homicide detectives hugging members of Stiers' family outside. During the 2-week trial, tensions were high, and from the beginning, this case attracted a lot of attention. After Khill's arrest in 2016, petitions were created, one demanding he stay in jail, the other demanding the charges be dropped. There's been a range of reaction online, and comparisons were drawn between this case and a case in Saskatchewan, where a white farmer was acquitted of second-degree murder by an all-white jury in the shooting death of Colton Boushie, who was Indigenous. In this case, jurors were asked whether the fact that the accused was a white man and the victim was an Indigenous man would affect their ability to approach the case without bias. But in his closing arguments, Khill's lawyer said race had nothing to do with this case. A legal expert saying,
"This is absolutely not a case about race, and it bears no similarity to the one we know out west. There was no evidence and no suggestion that the accused man knew that the man he shot was Indigenous. Really, where I thought this verdict is questionable is not because of the race issue. It is because the idea that just because you're in the army, you can use more reasonable force than you or I. You can shoot first and ask questions later. You can go out guns a-blazing, not call 911.
Nevertheless, First Nations leaders were watching closely. Six Nations elected Chief Ava Hill released a statement expressing shock and disappointment at the verdict, calling for changes to the criminal justice system, saying, "How can Indigenous people have faith in the relationship with Canada when the justice system fails to hold anyone accountable for the taking of a life?"
I feel like a victim here today, not just because I know Jonathan and he grew up here, but the fact is that all Indigenous people are victims here today, and we deserve to be looked at, to be thought of in the way that this whole issue is being handled.
People in Ohsweken saying they weren't surprised when the not guilty verdict came down.
If Jonathan would have been a white young man, that man would never have gotten off. Never. He would have been found guilty.
The Six Nations elected council calling on the Ministry of the Attorney General to appeal the verdict. The judge called it a tough and emotional trial. It took the 12-person jury less than a day of deliberations to reach a verdict, and once it was read, the judge told Peter Khill, "You are free to go," a composed Khill thanking him. Then out a back door, escorted by police, the man who could have faced a life sentence, now free to go home. He and his wife, newly married, in a few months, expecting their first child.